Hello everyone, today is an unusual video. I'll be visiting a viewer of the channel, and it's a very interesting case where a house made of Arbolite will be plastered with a slope. Geographically, I'm in the Sverdlov settlement, which is 12 kilometers from St. Petersburg, and the house is literally right on the Univa riverbank. And first of all, I'll show how I should have originally done it when plastering my own house, not like I struggled with that crooked wall, but how it should really be done. Secondly, since he's a viewer of the channel, Sergey knows that I advocate against building houses out of Arbolite. But real life is such that if you want to live, you'll do whatever it takes, so I think this will be interesting and useful. Sergey, the owner of the house, faced a situation during the construction of the shell in 2021 when not only did the price of regular aerated concrete blocks go over 12,000 per cubic meter, but you also couldn't even buy them. Manufacturers just couldn't keep up with the increased demand at that time. For my own house, I was only able to buy materials to get the house closed in thanks to luck, so I understand what it's like not knowing what tomorrow brings. In such cases, even Arbolite can be a solution. At that time, 90 cubic meters of blocks were ordered at 7,000 each. Of course, I got involved in the construction process myself, but first, Sergey himself will tell you about the house. Here.
That means my slab is 10 meters wide. No, 9 meters wide and 15 meters long. But here, there's a small entryway built for the entrance area and for the boiler room. Here will be the boiler room. In the boiler room, I used 30 cm blocks, and for the house itself, 40 cm blocks, and I decided to use 20 cm blocks for the partition walls. There's one bathroom, a small one for everyone, a combined toilet and bath. This is the living room. The actual ceiling height should be about 3.10 meters with 80 mm profiles. Here, it's closed. Yeah, you can open it. I think it has sagged a little, it feels like it, because when you close it, you don't really feel it.
I can feel it. I adjusted mine 3 times.
Yeah? Will it ever end?
This, well, by the way, last year I think I finally learned how to do it properly.
So sooner or later it will fall into place, right?
So how are we going to make the lintels?
Look, every 3 rows I have a reinforcing mesh.
Yeah, this one?
It's soft. It's right here. I've already flattened it, but it comes in these... Is it composite or what? I don't really remember. And it was sticking out everywhere by about 5 centimeters. That was my job, you know. I used to get out like this, well...
Yeah, something like that.
I ran away from it all, because how are you supposed to plaster on that?
And don't they do something like a thermal engineering calculation at the factory?
They just told me 40 would be enough for you to plaster, and you wouldn't need anything else. But I think you need to insulate here. So Alexander said that doing it from the outside with extruded polystyrene will cost money and will eat up quite a bit.
You can do it, for example, well...
I'll insulate the inside reveal.
It'll be tricky to do it here with XPS in one go. Like how they did it on my door with a little wooden strip, kind of like this, just to cover up this spot, like that. Drywall, and then use a foam gun like this. And so you get a gap, drywall, yeah, it's fixed tightly with screws, and there's also foam, which insulates it.
And that's it, really. Well, yeah, that's also an option.
But you need to use that sealant, something like Stiz B.
Well, I plastered with Stiz from the outside. Anyway, let's go through the rooms. I'll show you. In general, it's 35 here, I think, or 36. Here it's 5. Here the rooms are 14 each. They're twins. Here they decided not to build any wall. Here's a little corridor.
Yeah, that's cool. When there's an entrance and a big space, it's a lot more convenient.
Maybe I'll make a walk-in closet this tall with separate shelves, close off some kind of niche.
And what about the heating?
Gas A.
With gas, it doesn't matter at all?
And the bathroom is combined too.
Something like that, yeah?
So this is the structure, yeah, the windows. Because I have a U-block here, and there's a concrete lintel here.
And on top there's a U-block as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, and there's foam insulation there too. Do you see? There's a cut-off outside. That's why they said, we can't install your window evenly. We'll mount it on metal brackets, on metal ones. Yeah, you know, I was paranoid. I said, there will be a thermal bridge, it'll freeze from there.
It'll come in here and whatever, there will be a thermal bridge in water. There needs to be something there.
So Alexander said it should be sealed with foam there. Well, I just want to say that when the woman was standing here, if you don't open the doors and windows, it's really fresh in here.
Fresh? Here, it turns out it has a lot of thermal mass. It's like a heat reservoir, so it'll work both ways. It has a very high density. In this regard, the aerated concrete block has less thermal inertia. With electricity you could go broke, but with gas I think it'll be fine. That's it.
I think it'll be fine. They said you have to plaster it from the outside, so I'm doing that now. There's no point doing anything inside until it's sealed. Because, for example, I have a U-block on top. When they were pouring the bond beam, they said you need to moisten it so the concrete sets well. They take a bucket of water, pour it into the U-block, and it just goes straight through like that. So Arbolite doesn't hold water at all.
In this regard, moisture moves through it by capillary action. Completely. Yes, probably.
With aerated concrete, it already has beads, the first row, the third row, and so on. Some beads absorb water, causing it to move more slowly through the aerated concrete, but through this material, water can go straight all the way through.
Through, it turns out. So what about the facade? It's hydrophobic, so it'll work out perfectly.
The geometry, by the way, is quite good.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, it's definitely there. Well, not like aerated concrete, but still not 2 centimeters or anything, maybe about 5 millimeters, a little step probably.
3 to 5 millimeters make a seam. It clearly varies. The groundwater, that's one pipe, that's from the wells. The second one is mine. We buried the storm drain right away. These are those black corrugated pipes connected, and so that the water from the roof would also flow straight here.
Like a catch basin, basically.
Here with a 3-meter pump with a sealed bottom. This pipe is already 8, and I haven't even lived here yet.
This is just the house itself.
Just for the slab, it cost $1,200,000, not counting the land purchase. It's an uninsulated Swedish slab.
1.2 million was the usual price for the slab.
Well, what do you mean, like, for me to stay at Ilya's place? Let's say, for that amount of money, you could have, for example, May.
But I wouldn't stress over a warm shell for $1 million.
That's what I'm saying, right? No, if that money included the drainage right when they're digging the pit, it would be much faster and more convenient to just have a tractor do it on site. He quickly says, "You don't need drainage. Why do you want it?"
With that much water, damn, you really needed drainage. Yeah, you could ignore it then. Yeah.
Look, there's also sand, and I had a soil survey done there. So, I have about 70 centimeters to a meter of black soil, then about a meter of loam, and underneath there's blue clay, and it holds all the water.
Comments. I recently visited friends at their dacha, literally 100 kilometers from St. Petersburg. You make tea, and it's not just that there's no internet, there's not even any mobile phone signal. At the same time, the place itself is incredibly beautiful. There are houses. Really, there's a link as a plus, but for me that's critical. And to hell with the internet. Even when dialing 112 on the phone, the call didn't go through, so you can't even call an ambulance in some situations. And before I didn't know how to deal with such issues with cell service, but now I'll be aware myself. Any comments? The company will be able to set this up in the house. And let's get back to Sergey's house. With Aerated plaster it's 250 and with a gift.
150 roughly. Yes, I think it's 150 or something like that. Well, 79 bags, well, 80 times 2, okay, 154.
154?
Yes. Well, there you'll have like a proven technology that the manufacturer of aerated concrete, Arbolite, uses on their own houses. Which he makes himself, plasters the shell himself, and says it all lasts a long time. Like with Cerasit, there's a 25-year warranty. And you don't have to think about the color. Everything is already painted for you. And you don't have to worry about chips because it's solid color throughout. Even if you chip something, it's not noticeable.
That one has a different density. It should be more resistant, yes, to mechanical impacts.
Both to mechanical impacts, and there's more work involved with it itself. You have to prime everything.
The work there should cost a lot more, in my opinion. And applying the finish coat with Cerasit is even harder.
Yeah, where are they there?
It's really that complicated, just so tricky.
It's really no joke. You apply it and it's so runny by itself that Cerasit, you have to be really careful. You can just mess it up, so it's better not to do it yourself. If here we fit into 550, there I fit into 800, that's how it is. Well, because of the work and materials, it's more or less, well, the difference is about 100,000 give or take. You don't really go much higher, but you have to understand that you'll already have color, and you'll have not just color. I forgot to mention, the decor is included there, just like my wife wanted, with dark inserts of a different color under the windows.
Most of the work on the house was done by hired workers, which explains the prices. Also, we each have local features, especially regarding the soil. And some people really need a slab with double reinforcement. For 43 cubic meters of concrete, my house used a little over 30 cubic meters of blocks and 10 cubic meters of concrete.
Грубо говоря, материалоемкость дома
It's about 3 times higher. Plus, during this time, everything has doubled in price, and even without taking into account the workers' wages, the costs are 6 times higher than for my house. From this perspective, a price tag of 8 for a shell without finishing even looks reasonable. That's the new reality. As Sergey himself said, he considered different options for the facade finishing and chose Spadar to save money. Let me remind you, this is a lightweight decorative facade plaster. Its base is granules of foamed ceramics with a cement binder, and it was specially created for plastering houses made of aerated concrete blocks. But in theory, it should also work well with wood concrete walls. How it will turn out in practice, no one knows yet. We'll see. Its main advantage is that it is vapor-permeable, so moisture will not accumulate in the wall. At the same time, the plaster is hydrophobic, meaning rain will simply run off it and water won't be absorbed into the wall. The plaster will protect against drafts, especially with joints like these that are almost through. Though just 1 centimeter thick, it's still an extra layer of insulation. But what surprised me the most is how strong its adhesion is. It even sticks to metal. God forbid you get something dirty with it. You'll have a hard time getting it off later. Not everyone has the circumstances to work both at their job and on their own construction site at the same time, like I did when I was building my house. That's why you have to hire workers. The work of applying Spadar, both the base and the finishing layer together, currently costs 950 rubles per square meter, and the window reveals are additionally charged at 950 rubles per linear meter. Since Sergey mentioned Aerated from his plastering experience, I'll add that Spadar is actually easier to use when building your own house. I struggled with the finishing layer due to inexperience, but I have a detailed video on my channel about the finish coat and all the application nuances. One of the things is that basically I made a mistake with the base layer from the start, and that's why it was harder with the finishing layer later on. And here's how professionals do the base layer and how I would do it myself if I were to build again. The Arbolite masonry, to my surprise, was so even that not even everyone lays aerated concrete blocks that well. There were some local spots with thick joints where you could stick a finger in, but overall the surfaces were very even, and there were no steps greater than 5 mm. We took a regular 6 mm plaster guide and, without using a level, just attached the beacons to the wall about a meter apart with staples using a furniture stapler. This way we get a surface that's not perfect but flat enough. For applying around the window reveals, we used an Otknov mixture to cover the foam joint around the window. We would use the same mixture to fill any large cavities in the wall, for example, from chipped blocks or handholds on the aerated concrete block after it dries. Plastic corner beads with mesh were attached outside with another element fixed next to the frame. The mesh around the opening extended 15 centimeters with overlaps in the corners. Plastic corners were stapled to secure the house's corners. Reinforce the mesh at joints between different materials, such as where extruded polystyrene insulation meets the house exterior, or at the plinth or reinforced concrete bond beam. To apply this particular plaster, you don't need primers or additional mesh over the entire surface. You just need to thoroughly wet the wall surface with water. Next, we mixed a fairly large number of bags at once, enough for one wall from corner to corner. The plaster is thrown with a trowel into the space between the guides and sags a bit. The plaster is leveled with a straight edge. It's easier with scaffolds and 2 people, but still doable alone. When 2 areas between the guides are covered like this, the guide is immediately removed and the resulting seam is carefully filled in with just a trowel. The biggest problem I had with the finishing layer was the need to work continuously. Otherwise, with pebble plaster you get an ugly bump at the joint of 2 passes. It's much easier to do everything with the base layer using guides. It's best not to work alone in the heat, especially in direct sunlight. It's best to apply it on the shady side of the house and organize your work according to the movement of the sun along the wall. Also, keep a close eye on the weather forecast so you don't plaster in the rain. Plaster in the bucket, at least 1 bag, gets much thicker in about 2 hours. You need to understand the speed at which you can use up a batch, but being quick at work applies to all plasters in general. There were a lot of questions about tinting. It's better not to tint. First of all, you won't be able to match the color from batch to batch. Secondly, the granules themselves are white and might not get fully tinted either. Machine application is possible, but the manufacturer does not recommend it. Overall, it's applied by hand very quickly. It took only 5 days to do the whole house with both the base and finish layers. I also heard a recommendation from the contractor to apply the base layer before installing the roof overhang soffit, and then apply the finish layer after the soffit is in place so that the plaster covers the joint and there's no gap between the soffit and the wall. They offer a 2-year warranty. If anyone in St. Petersburg and the surrounding region needs plasterers, I'll include contact details in the description. By the way, I found out that now you can even buy plaster from them with free delivery if you order at least 30 bags. I'm just sharing this for informational purposes. It was my own academic interest. No one paid me to talk about the plaster. I'm not hiding it. I'd happily accept payment. I'm not in a position to brag. If anyone wants to pay, my contact info is in the description. The sponsor of this video was a different company, so I'm telling everything as it is. When applying the base layer, everything was perfectly fine. How it will behave over time, that's definitely a question, because things aren't very clear with Arbolite. And maybe, with Sergey's permission, after some time I'll come by and film how it feels. I'll show you soon how the plaster looks when finished on my own house. I literally have just a couple of steps left to completely finish the facade. Currently my goal is to find siding boards locally to avoid expensive delivery from St. Petersburg, which is 120 kilometers away. Regarding Arbolite, I always make the same point. If you have the option not to build with Arbolite, please don't. Just take a look at the quality certificate for aerated concrete blocks and compare it to the quality certificate for Arbolite. In every characteristic, the aerated concrete block will be better. And these characteristics are not based on some made-up stuff, but on the results of laboratory tests. I'm not saying that Arbolite is a bad material. Yes, there are different buildings made from it. They've been standing for decades and everything seems to be working fine. But in fact, aerated concrete block today is one of the best materials on the entire planet for private home building, because there are a lot of nuances which Sergey talked about in the video that you don't understand until you actually face them during the construction process. And with things like, for example, how to chase walls, how to install fasteners, I don't really understand how all of this will behave. With aerated concrete blocks, I really enjoyed the fact that you don't need a hammer drill, you don't need a wall chaser, you can do everything with just a drill driver. There are these special anchors that can hold up to 100 kgs. A single mounting point can hold that much. You can hang some light shelves with regular anchors, you don't need anything special. Even in a D300 block, which is very soft, the fasteners hold really well. The cool part is you don't need a hammer drill. It's very convenient, especially if you're building your own house yourself. Also, Sergey was telling some funny stories, like how just carrying the blocks around is really painful. They poke you with those little splinters and it's really uncomfortable to work with. Based on the verbal description and photos of the work stages, I reviewed Sergey's work and found no violations of the construction process at any stage. Personally, with my admittedly unprofessional eye, I didn't see anything wrong. Everything was really done as well as possible. I hope the plastering will turn out fine too. I used to be very categorical in my statements, but the deeper I get into construction, the more cases I learn about from different people and their situations, the more I realize that everything in our world is made for a reason. Everything exists for a reason, and in different circumstances there are different solutions. Because you don't really think about it, but yes, you live on this planet and there are 8 billion other people around you, each with their own story. Also, I never really thought about the fact that last year I was in Kyrgyzstan showing those houses made of straw and clay. You might wonder, if you have aerated concrete blocks, why use straw and clay? But again, there's a nuance that few people think about. You have local distinctive features like the terrain, for one. Secondly, you might have a place that's far from a big town, and where I was, it turned out that the cost of delivering materials was higher than the cost of the materials themselves. And that's why it turns out to be too expensive, so people build there using whatever materials are available at hand. And there are a lot of such moments in construction, and you don't really think about them until you find yourself, so to speak, in someone else's shoes. Huge thanks to Sergey for his hospitality. It was really interesting and I hope it was useful for you. Let's all wish Sergey perseverance and success in the rest of his construction, because there's still a lot of work ahead. Sergey, hang in there, everything will definitely work out. If I get any additional information, most likely it won't be enough for a separate video, so I'll post it somewhere on my Telegram channel. The link is in the description below the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so to see the work on my house get finished. Wishing you success with your construction and see you in the next video.